Welcome to the What's Your Story podcast with Hannah and Stephanie. Each episode, we invite a guest to share real stories of real faith in a real God. Through hearing these stories, it is our hope that you will discover how God wants to use your story in his much bigger story. We all have a story. What's your story? We are so glad that you are here. On today's episode, we are really honored to have our friends, Jamie and Daniel Best. In the middle of the podcast, you're going to hear Jamie say this: Satan does not want people to know God can redeem a complete mess that you have created. This story is absolutely beautiful, and it's one of hope, of redemption. It's one of not giving up, of sticking in, of being committed, of making choices. And so we know that you guys are going to really enjoy and be encouraged by this story as much as we are. Your situation may be completely different from what Jamie and Daniel are describing, but do not miss that our God is a God of hope. So as we continue our hope series, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode with Jamie and Daniel Best. All right.
Hey, girl, we're back.
We are back. And we're doing an amazing series on hope that I needed in my life greatly. And I feel like a lot of people...
We need hope.
A lot of people need, yes.
Yeah, and what's great, when we're sharing stories, it's great to hear other people who needed hope and have hope and found hope. And so hope is contagious.
It is contagious. And I just definitely, in my small group, the women I hang out with, we've had a lot going on.
And whatever season or stage, I'm just talking with women of all different ages. Hope is we just need it, and we need to encourage one another and share those stories of what God has done and he's doing in our life. And sometimes we're the person that needs hope, and sometimes we're the person that's offering hope.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about our guest today. Yes. One, because it's very rare that we have a male in the studio.
I know, we're bending our rules.
We are bending our rules, and we're glad to have him. But also, because we have Jamie and Daniel Best today, but because Jamie approached us and said that she didn't want to share the story, but God would not let go of her. And so as much as I know how heavy that has to be, we know that this is a God-ordained story.
Absolutely.
So really excited. So.
Welcome, Jamie and Daniel.
Yeah. Hi.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah. So Jamie's been on the podcast before. She was our Enneagram 8. She's my go-to Enneagram 8 girl. I love me some Enneagram 8 women. And so she's familiar with kind of the studio, the podcast, all those things, but just reintroduce yourself for our listeners who may not have been listening. That's been a couple of years, right?
It's been a while. Yeah.
It's just crazy.
I know.
I'm Jamie Best. I am a teacher and a mom and a wife. That's about it. Nothing real exciting.
Those are all exciting things.
They are. Oh, we're like teacher. Yep.
Yeah.
Wife, mom. And I know your kiddos. So
yeah, we have some great kiddos.
They're amazing.
For sure.
Definitely a football mom.
Football mom. Yes. We live and die by football in the fall. It runs our lives.
And Jamie enjoys it.
I do.
Jamie loves it. Yeah. I mean, most of us do, Hannah. I'm just saying.
I like the popcorn. Jamie, do you understand it?
I do understand it. So our oldest son is a junior in college, and he plays college football. And about the time he went to high school, I was like, I should probably figure this thing out. He's been playing since he's 5. I should probably know the position, the difference between offense and defense. So I got it now. I know the offensive line. Really outside of that and the quarterback, I'm like, I don't know all those.
I just learned what the red zone was last year. Yeah. So, I've been around football since I was 13. My husband coaches. My son played, I try.
How do you not ever?
I don't know.
Moving on. So Daniel, tell us about you.
So I'm Daniel Best. I work at a bank, and I'm a dad and a husband, and nothing. There's really nothing. Yeah,
just regular,
regular people.
Yeah,
we go to work every day.
You're wearing a Black Rifle coffee shirt. I just want you to know that, and it's my favorite coffee.
It is the greatest coffee.
I'm drinking it right now. It is incredible.
And we can get into this when we talk about my Enneagram, but I always like to be the first guy into something. I like to be the first guy that saw that movie or listened to that band or whatever. And I've been ordering Black Rifle beans since 2015 or 16. Yeah, I was on the train early, and it's
You know
delicious.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
So
Yeah.
one of the guys who started Black Rifle, his name is Matt something.
Best. That's
is
how I
it?
remember.
That's
Yeah.
how Stephen served with him.
Yeah.
And which is
that's
crazy.
cool.
And so I got that's how I was introduced to Black Rifle. And so and now it's at Walmart.
Right.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was a game changer.
That was a game changer. Yeah.
I do remember you when I heard Black Rifle was coming
Yes.
to town, that you were the one that was like, "This, oh my goodness!"
It's
and I'm
so
like, "What
good.
is it? I've
It's
never heard of it." So,
So good. Yeah. So
It's coffee that tastes like coffee. And
Yeah.
not
Yes.
syrup.
You know you're drinking coffee.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I just, I drink mine black. So it's delicious.
the
It's
coffee is something Hannah does know a lot about.
good. I do.
That she can talk about. So yes. Okay,
can
so
talk about
Daniel, we
that.
did not miss that little drop of Enneagram. So
Yes.
apparently Jamie told you if you're going to
Yes.
be on our podcast that chances are I'm going to bring
We're
it
gonna
up.
talk about it.
So let's just go ahead and get it out of the way, since we know Jamie's an 8, you're an Enneagram
5.
5.
Yes.
What a fun match.
Yes.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got its challenges.
Yeah. Well, that kind of segues us into the story, right?
Yeah.
So we typically will send our guests, some kind of, we call them guiding questions. But I told these guys we did not do that with y'all, because we really want to be able to hear your story, how you want to tell it. And then I know Hannah and I will have questions
Yeah, it'll happen.
beyond that. So take that away.
You want me to go?
Yeah, you go.
All right. So let's set the scene.
Okay.
1993, maybe 4.
It's been so long, who can remember
Right.
that far back?
Like, I don't know.
Clarksville High pep rally.
Oh.
I was sitting with a buddy of mine, and I saw this girl. So there were 2 girls coming up the steps, and one of them I knew, and the other one I did not. So I nudged my buddy and I said, "Who in the heck is that with Tracy Sanford?" And he was like, "Oh, she just moved here." And I said, "Oh, she's got it going on." That was the first time I saw her. And then we didn't really hang out much in high school.
We had different crowds.
We did have different crowds. I was more of an academic. I read a lot.
And now he's lying.
JK. So we were.
I was trying to picture it, but I know. I was tracking.
We were going there.
So we were a grade apart. So I graduated 95. She graduated 96, and then I joined a fraternity at Austin P. And me and 2 other guys were living in an apartment. The building's not even there anymore. It got knocked out in the tornado. But anyway, we lived on one floor, and Jamie and 2 other girls lived like right above us. So we dated for, I don't know.
Not long. A couple months.
Not long, a couple of months. Broke up, got back, broke up. It was tumultuous, as I like to say. But and then she got married. I got married.
Two different people.
To different people.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
She got divorced. I got divorced, and we ran into each other at the Pinnacle. So.
At like
Yeah.
the bowling alley?
No, the bar.
The bar.
Oh.
They had a bar. So in the early
We didn't
2000s,
start on the most firm
we
foundation.
did not start on the most firm foundation.
Over here like bowling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we ran into each other out in public, and she was like, "This is our running joke." She kept saying, "It is so good to see you," and I was like, "Yeah," and she kept like touching my arm like this, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome."
She's into me.
Yeah.
into
This
it.
Yeah.
is happening.
So then she actually gave her number to a buddy of mine, and I called her from a payphone because no one had cell phones, and that was it.
This was like 2005?
3, I think. Yeah, we got married in 05.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
It's been a
Yes.
minute.
So yeah. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
So spoiler alert, they got married,
We got married,
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just to add to that, I had 2 kids for my first marriage. So, we came into this with being a blended family,
Right.
both having, a previous relationship. So, like he said, ran into each other in a bar. It's not the firmest of foundations to start a relationship on.
So just really back it up. Both of you
Yeah.
guys are Christians, both of you are
Yes.
believers. So
Yes.
when did that become a thing in your life? Was the prior young? How'd y'all meet Jesus?
Well, I was young, like 7 years old when I got saved. And
So where'd you grow up at, Jamie?
I'm from here.
You are from here.
Yeah, but my dad worked it was Syncom Cable back in the day. It's Charter now, but we moved around a lot. So I never lived anywhere longer than 3 years until we ended up back here the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
So yeah, we very unstable childhood, lots of moving and stuff like that. We'll talk about how that played into this, later. But yeah, so I've been here most of my adulthood.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so you found Jesus at a young age?
Yes. Yeah. So I was 7 years old, and when we were in Clarksville as a young kid, we were at Hilldale, and so I was saved at Hilldale, and just got away from the Lord as a teenager. And my dad got sick when I was 16, and just we were out of church because he needed 24-hour nursing care, and it was just a lot. So definitely got away from the Lord. But after we got married, we were in church, but just not living right. We were doing all from the outside, it looked real good, but at home, not so much, I mean, we weren't out partying and drinking, but we weren't living for the Lord. It was not what we should have been doing.
How about you, Daniel?
So I grew up in church. I've lived here all my life. Like, my mom was born here. My grandma was born here. My great grandma was born here.
Wow. Okay. That's really unusual.
Yeah, I know. You don't see a lot of. It's funny. We joke, we spot each other. We're like, I know that guy.
You're local.
And they're probably related.
Yeah.
Like seventh cousins.
We were waiting at a restaurant the other night, and 3 or 4 people walked in, and Mark and I've been here forever too. And our kids commented on, they're like, y'all know all these people, and it's like, well, only if they're people that have been here a long time.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you said, it was like, how do you know them? And,
we went to Barksdale together.
Yeah, exactly.
We rode the bus
We
together.
rode the bus together.
Yeah.
So I grew up going to very stereotypical Southern Bible Belt. My mom played the piano. My dad was a deacon. My dad taught Sunday school. My granddad was a deacon. My granddad taught Sunday school. My grandmother worked in the nursery and washed the Lord's Supper cups. Just very as southeastern Christian as you can be. That's Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night.
Oh yeah. Homecoming
in May, revivals in the summertime, like the preacher came to eat at your house, that kind of deal. So, and I walked an aisle and prayed a prayer and got baptized when I was 8. But to be honest, I don't really consider that a real surrender. I mean, that's probably a topic for another day. But from the time I hit probably 14, 15 till, I don't know, about 2 years ago, I really just did what I wanted to do whenever I got ready. And I kind of hung my hat on this tradition. And
you had punched a card, you had walked an aisle, you had been baptized. I'm good to go.
I felt that was good. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think tradition, that's a great word to use, because I think in the South especially, right? It's just an expectation in our community. Like, everybody goes to church somewhere,
right?
Oh, yeah.
So I can see where for a lot of us, that may be our stories. There's one a point in your life where your faith has to become yours. And that's what I would say. That's the moment you got saved, right? There's this whole journey, but it's like, when did you ask Jesus to be the boss of your life?
Yeah.
And
Surrender.
Surrender.
Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, you go ahead.
All right.
Where do you start?
So the short version, we were married, I don't know, a few years into our marriage, would you say? Jamie had an affair. She confessed that to me, maybe a year?
It's probably a year and a half after it happened. I was in a small group with a group of women, and
at church.
Yeah. Okay. Not at Hilldale, but just a Christian small group. And it had just weighed on me. I mean, it had been over for a long time, but it was, even without him knowing, was having so many negative effects on our marriage that I knew. I mean, and it was like Satan's hold on our marriage, because it was that crack that he could just get in there and, cause destruction. And Daniel's completely oblivious to what's going on. So I had talked to my small group leader, kind of confessed it to her. And, she said, you have to tell him, you can't have secrets in your marriage, even if it is over. And, if you don't tell him, I will. And when I tell people that, they look at me like, oh my gosh, would she have really done it? And she would have. And I appreciate that now, because it had to be done. And without knowing that she would have told him. I might not have ever told him. You know, it may have been a secret that I would carry forever. So I told him, and we didn't get the help that we needed. You know, Daniel did some counseling. We went together to some counseling, but it was real short, real surface level. You know, we couldn't afford like a real counselor, so we had to go to a counselor that was free. So you kind of get what you get with that, you know, and I mean, you have to do what you can do, but that's better than nothing. But, we swept it under the rug, you know, we'll handle this. We didn't reach out for support from community, from our church. We just like nobody that we were close to even knew about it, you know? So fast forward,
I don't know, 7-8 years. I had an affair. It lasted longer. She found out about it. I said it was over. It wasn't over. She found out about it again. And then I left. She actually told me she didn't want me living in the house anymore. And I mean, I didn't protest. Like I just got my stuff, and left. So I don't know if I'm skipping.
No, yeah.
So I left and was actually staying in like this motel, going to work every day. I would, me and Lainey, so the older two kids were already in school, so they weren't in the house at the time. And P.S., that was a lie that I was told and believed by the devil, that if you have grown kids, they don't really care.
They're not impacted.
They're not impacted. That's a lie. Anybody out there that's got sold on that, it's a lie. I'm here to tell you. So anyway, and I was in this motel watching YouTube video. Well, actually, before that, I got up one morning to go to work, and are y'all familiar with, y'all know YouVersion, the Bible app?
Oh, yeah.
So I had this notification from YouVersion, and it was like, Jamie Best has sent you a Bible verse. And it was something about I don't even remember the verse or the context.
It was about mercy.
Mercy. So I texted her and I said, quit sending me Bible verses. And she said, I didn't send you any Bible verses. I said, stop lying. So anyway, she said, well, I'm not lying. I didn't send it. And she said, but if you want to know the truth, that I'm reading my Bible and I'm praying for you. And I was like, quit praying for me. I don't need you praying for me. So anyway.
Well, and there was a lot of people praying for
us. A lot of people.
Because, you know, when I first found out about the affair, it was September. And then when he moved out was in January. So some time had passed, and, you know, we were in community with a small group and pretty involved with this small group. So they're all praying for us. I mean, there was a lot of people that were in our business at the time that were really praying for us. So it wasn't just me praying for him, but just all kinds of people. Our parents knew about it at this time. You know, our kids know about it.
I think that's important to you, because even you've shared twice. So you just shared when you first went through your affair that someone finally said, I'm going to bring this to light. Like, I'm going to tell him. And it's like, again, you know, if the enemy can convince us, as long as nobody knows about it,
that's right.
Keep it your business, not anybody else's business. Then you don't have those people going to war with you. I mean, it's spiritual war, right?
Yes.
And so you're building an army. That's what you're doing. Building an army of believers that will literally fight on your behalf on their knees.
Yeah. And I can't say enough about how important that is. I mean, even just this week leading up to this podcast, like, we have felt under attack, you know, like, this is not something that Satan wants us to tell. He doesn't want people to know that God can redeem a complete disaster that you have created. And he doesn't want people to know that. So, like, we have felt it this week, and that we're still in that same small group, and they have just been praying. Daniel has a men's Bible study that's been praying. Our kids have been praying, you know. So that is so important, to surround yourself with people that are going to fight for you.
You know what you're saying? It's not easy. It's not easy to be vulnerable like that with people, right? In a group. But honestly, I would say it's a matter of life and death here. Death for a marriage, just generationally, all of those things. And so when you allow people in that can fight for you, go to war with you, it's just a game changer.
Yeah. Well, I want to revisit, you know, you said, don't send me Bible verses. Yeah. I'm not interested in that.
Right.
Not interested in prayer. Not interested in that.
Yeah.
So, you know, if like, I know that happens, right? That happens a lot. And so it's like, those of us that are on the outside, at what point did that penetrate, or how did that penetrate? I'm interested in how that changed.
Ironic story. I don't know if I call it funny. I was watching YouTube videos just in this crappy motel, and I was actually watching duck hunting videos, and the algorithm threw me Phil Robertson, Duck Dynasty Phil Robertson, sharing his testimony. And I don't know how long ago this was. I mean, his beard was black, his hair was black. So
it's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
But he said in his testimony, he said, what got me interested in Christianity and ultimately led to my surrender is that Jesus Christ promises life, abundant life here and life eternal with him. And he said, who else is selling that? Nobody. He said, you can't find anything else out there that promises life. And I felt like there was someone on my back, like I was giving someone like I just felt this gigantic weight, and I was like, I'm on a path to death. Like I have chosen a path of deceit and death, and I want off of it. So I just prayed. I said, I want what you have. Like I thought that I knew what you were offering, but I have never been this low. And if anybody can get me back to where I need to be, it's you. So whatever you want me to do, I'll do. And at the time, we were actually talking about getting a divorce. I mean, we're talking about, not in detail, but I mean, in my head, I'm thinking about selling our house and, the kids, and we're talking divorce. And I just said, even if she won't take me back, I'm in on you. So whatever you want to do, I'll do. And and the next night we had a meeting, at a pastor's office that we've been going to see. And I just broke down and I was like, I want to come back. I want to be done. I want to be different. I want the life that the Bible offers, and I want it to be with you. Now, if we're past that, then, that was all on me. That was my fault, but she wanted it too.
Was God working on you at the same time?
Yeah. And, I didn't want to be divorced, I knew that he was the person that God had for me. I knew that. And I think that my affair, a decade earlier it allowed me to have so much grace and mercy for what the choices that he was making. Like I knew what he was thinking. I knew how deceived he was. Where I think a lot of people, if you've never been on that side of it, no way am I saying that I'm glad that happened, but because it happened, it allowed me to see it from a whole different perspective, and I knew that what he was thinking and feeling and doing wasn't really him, and I knew how deceived he was. And I told him in that pastor's office that night, I said, I will not be the one to make the choice to end this marriage. And that was advice from somebody in my small group. She said, when you meet with him, this is what you say, because who knows what to say or what to do in that situation? Like you're just a total disaster, and I thought, okay, that's right. That's what I think. That's how I feel. That's what I'm going to say. So I just went in there and I said, I won't be the one to say that this is over. If that's what you want, if that's the choice that you make, that's the choice that you make, but I won't be the one to make that choice for our family. So, so from that point on, it was a lot of hard work. Like it wasn't just rainbows and sunshine after that. I mean, It was really crappy a lot, and we're over 2 years out from that. And it's been so much hard work, but it's been God in the center of it since then, you know.
Did you move back in at that point?
No, I stayed gone another day.
That was a Wednesday. And I think Friday I said, I want you to come back home, but different bedrooms for a while. Because, grown kids, we have a lot of empty space now. So, yeah. So it was, I wasn't ready for him to be back there, but I also knew that him not being in our home with our child and being a family, even if it looked different for a while, was not good. Like that
Right.
wasn't helpful.
And there's something good about your kids seeing you work it out.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like no matter what your situation is, when they can see you fight, when they can see you fall apart, but then see you work it out, it's preaching a gospel message to them without even really saying a word.
For sure. For sure. I think that like our kids know life is not all rainbows and sunshine, and life is hard and marriage is hard, but it's also worth the fight. You know, our oldest, she's 22, and she was real mad at him for a while, and she was mad at me because she's also an 8 on the Enneagram. So like, you don't put up with anybody's crap. And in her eyes, this was me putting up with a bunch of crap that I should have walked away from. And 22-year-old me would have thought and done the same thing. And I just had to tell her, like, I had to draw a boundary. If you're not going to be a champion for our marriage, then we're not going to talk about our marriage. And I understand that you're hurt. I understand that you're upset. I understand that you think I should make different choices and that he should have made. I understand that, but this is what we're doing. We're fighting for this. And I think that she was like, 2 days later, she was like, okay, I get that now. And I'm with y'all now. And, I just think we're trying to use it as a tool to teach them, that things are going to be hard, but with Jesus, you can seriously overcome anything hard. Anything.
Yeah. I think that's so important to you because, Daniel, like you were talking about how you grew up, I grew up very similar to that, and it is this rainbows and sunshine faith. Like, just don't talk about anything hard. We're just going to sing about Jesus, and Christians don't ever have any problems. And then when you do become an adult and you have a problem, it's like, what's this?
Right.
This doesn't happen to us. Like, this isn't supposed to happen to us.
Yeah.
And none of us is immune to that at all.
We talk about that sometimes. So I'm in a Bible study with some guys, and you're local, so you'll get it. They meet on the north side of town.
Oh, okay. I couldn't go across the bridge.
I know, right? Yeah, we weren't allowed. But anyway.
Nothing good happens over there.
So I'm in a group with a bunch of guys who probably couldn't be any more different than me, except for, our faith. And it's good for me because I told her, I said, when I was growing up, and I wouldn't trade my childhood. Like, I love my parents. They're awesome. But we didn't hang out with people that had problems. We didn't really, everybody my parents hung out with had a job.
Look like us, talk like us, act like us,
You
think
got
like
it.
us.
Yeah. Lived like 5 miles down the road. Their kids were the same age as my brother and I. So, yeah, I didn't get a lot of different stuff. And then when you're right, when I'm, 40, whatever I was, and I'm going through this, I'm like, oh my gosh, what? It was, I didn't know how to handle it.
Right.
Well, I think the culture of Christianity is shifting in a good way.
Yes.
I think that when we were all kids, everybody just put on their best face and their best dress and went to church on Sunday mornings. And even if you were cussing each other out in the car on the way there, as soon as you got out of that car, you better smile.
That's right.
Yeah.
Flip that switch.
Yeah. And I think that, culture as a whole is getting more real, I think, but I think Christianity is definitely going towards relationship, with the Lord and with people.
Authentic, authenticity and transparency.
It's a great shift, I think.
And I don't know where that happened in our history because Christianity historically is a faith of grit.
Right.
It's grimy and hardcore. And people were being mutilated for this, right? Like there are people still smuggling Bibles to this day, and there's nothing rainbows and butterflies about that. There are people giving their lives for this faith. And so if for us to paint it like puppy dogs and rainbow and butterflies is a shame because it is a hardcore, gritty faith. It's very real.
I think it's American Christianity more than anything because we don't have to fight for our faith. Yeah. Like we have the freedom to believe what we want. And in other places around the world, they don't have that freedom. So we definitely take it for granted.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you said it took a lot of work.
Yeah.
So Daniel, move back in at the end of the week. And so let's talk about the work.
So we were gifted a weekend. Not really a weekend. It was like an all day.
It was an intensive counseling session with a marriage counselor. And when this first started, I reached out to a counselor because I knew that with him or without him, I needed some help. Like I couldn't do
Right.
this by myself. So I reached out to a counselor who was an intern for another counselor. And so she kind of got us in to this intensive session. And not only was our marriage a mess, but our finances were a mess. There wasn't really any aspect of our marriage that wasn't a mess. So we couldn't afford, it's expensive.
But we were kind of being ministered to by a couple that had gone through the similar situation. And I don't
want to skip over that point either.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about that too real quick, because
Yeah.
I believe so much. Like, that's why when we started this podcast, I told Hannah, I think if you go through something, then you use that to reach back.
For
right?
sure.
You share
For
it.
sure.
Big
That's
time.
why we're here.
That is-
That's why we're here.
Big
right.
time. So
Yeah.
yes. So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's
but I don't
okay.
want to miss that point.
But they invited us to supper, and we went, and they just said, "Hey, we want to pay for you to do this."
It's incredible.
It was
Yeah,
awesome.
because it's not like it was $1,800.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
And they're saying we're investing in
Yeah.
you. Like
Yeah.
God,
Like,
had
we
put that-
believe in this.
Yes,
Right.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And so I was not super on board with it.
He did it because he knew that I wanted him to do it, and was almost like a requirement,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're going to do this, this is what you're going to
Right.
do.
yeah.
And having somebody else help us financially, that's hard for
I was
man.
going to say,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. It's
Not
really-
cool.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
cool.
Not cool.
At
That's
all.
right.
Yeah, but we were at a point where
What choice did
we
we
didn't
have?
have any choice,
Yeah.
and these people were believers. Our counselor was a believer, and even as like kind of not against it, but I wasn't super on board. Like I could see God's hand moving. Like I could see, because the people that did this for us, like we don't really hang out
Yeah.
much now. Like, and it's not in a bad. They were there when we needed them,
Right.
Yeah.
and I really think that God swooped them in.
Mm-hmm.
They told us what happened to them, how they got through it. They offered this to us, and they kind of swooped out. Not that I wouldn't talk to them if I saw them out in public, but you know what I
they're
mean?
not your
Right.
best friend.
They're not my.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
not, and they were there. I don't know. This just kind of came to me. I was reading the story about Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch
Oh, yeah.
yesterday, and something that I'd never noticed was like when Philip baptized the eunuch, like God just whisked.
He's gone.
Yeah, Philip away. I was like, well, man, that's.
And so that Ethiopian's like, "Whoa, okay.
Oh yeah. And so he just got. But they were there when we needed them, and I really believe that God brought them in. God told them what to do. They were obedient,
Yeah.
and then we just took that blessing and ran with it. Basically,
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, so the intensive session was on a Saturday, like 9 to 5 or 8 to
Yeah.
5, and it was intense. That is
was intense.
an
That's a good-
appropriate title.
for sure. Agreed.
Yeah, we dug in a lot to our family of origin. The counselor called it foo fighting.
Foo fighter.
Yeah, and we still talk about it now. Like our foo still rears its ugly head every now and then. But we had to figure out like why we are the way that we are, and the things that we bring into our marriage that maybe are not so helpful, and to help me understand where he's coming from, him to understand where I'm coming from. It was super duper important.
That was something that stood out to me, and we continued to see the counselor for a year, maybe.
Maybe I can't. Yeah, So the intensive session came with like 2 additional
Follow-ups.
follow-up
Yeah.
sessions, and then we saw her at least probably 6 months after that on our own.
Yeah.
And even we still couldn't afford it, but we had to find a way. Like we had started budgeting, like all of
Yes.
the pieces of our marriage were falling into place, but we had a budget for the first time ever. So, we couldn't really afford it, but somehow it just worked out. Like God knew that that's what we needed. We needed to see her, to continue to see her, and made a way for it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Daniel made a point before we started recording, because I was asking about that. And what you said was
Yeah.
if one of you had cancer,
Yeah.
you would do anything to get to the best doctors, but it's different when it's mental health, or
Right.
it's emotional
Yep.
health. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, let's not really talk about that.
Right.
And how important is that? But this is life and death too.
Yeah.
It is.
And when we were going, So we only talked about the affairs for a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Basically,
Like, why are you here?
Why are you here?
Yeah.
So we tell her, and she never brings it up again, because that was like those actions were like a manifestation of what was going on
Right.
inside of us.
Like underlying.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we dug in, I was like, oh, yeah, it's, yeah, I was like, oh, I didn't know that. You know, I learned about the snake brain.
Yeah.
Snake brain, Einstein brain. What's the other one?
I can't remember.
I can't either. There's 3 brains, right?
The snake brain, you don't want to access that.
Yeah, you don't want him in control.
Yeah.
Some people call it the lizard or the reptile.
Yeah.
But it's a
Lizard
very
brain.
lizard brain. It's very primal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like your reactive
Yeah.
brain.
It's like the middle school brain.
Like the fight or flight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, elaborate just a minute. I don't want to go down this whole, rabbit trail, but for folks that are like, what is therapy? Like, what is that? I've never, give us just a little synopsis of like your experience and why maybe it sounds like you guys believe in it now.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
talk about that just for a second.
Well, she asked a lot of questions to like get to the root of why we think the way that we think. Like, what was the history of our like childhood to make us think the way that we think? And I don't think that anybody realizes how much your childhood like really affects your adulthood and like the way that you think that marriage should look and parenting should look. And one of the biggest things that we did that impacted me the most was she gave us like, I don't know, 4 or 5 pieces of cardstock, and each piece represented a decade of our lives. And we had to draw pictures of that decade and just talk about like things that we felt during that decade and like who we felt like we were during that and like the major events. And that was something super impactful. And it just, to be honest, in the beginning, it felt silly. I was like, I don't even draw stick people well. And you want me to draw my whole childhood?
Yeah.
I have no idea, but it just brought a lot of things to the surface that I had pushed down and not thought about, and just hard stuff from my childhood that I think, because we talked about, gave Daniel a lot of grace for where I was coming from. Like one example, I'm loud and abrasive and maybe say some cuss words every now and then.
No.
Not as many as I used to, but
Don't cuss on this podcast.
I'm going to try not to. So to me, if I yelled or screamed or said F you to him, it wasn't personal. It was just the way that I talked. I mean, really, like in my mind, that was just the way that I communicated. Like having a fight, no big deal. Like that's just the way that I roll. And to him, it was so aggressive.
But because I had an authority figure when I was growing up who was an aggressive, he was probably an 8 on the Enneagram. Depression era, World War II era, kind of aggressive man, I mean, a good guy, but, and that's what I rebelled against. Like,
Took you back there.
oh yeah. You think you're mad now? Wait till you watch this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I never sought reconciliation, only like more rebellion. And we even said, like, after that Saturday, I was like, good gosh, if I would have known about what I know now about you, I would have handled you. I mean, handled in a good way, like I would have treated you differently. And she agreed. If I would have known the things about you that I learned today, that I would have treated you differently.
Yeah.
So
I love this stuff so much because it's so true.
Yeah.
It is, if you can see another perspective,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
don't, we go through life with just thinking our way is the
Yeah,
way,
the
the
way.
only way.
Yeah.
There's no way to look at another perspective, and there's no way to understand where anyone else is coming from.
Yeah.
And was it hard for you being an Enneagram 5 to get vulnerable in that space? Like, I'm sure she's an amazing therapist. Well, I know who she is. I know she's an amazing therapist, but yeah,
no, not really. And just out of desperation.
that's what I was going to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
You were at a point
I
where
was
you
at
were
a
like,
point
I'll do
where
whatever.
Whatever she told me to do, I would have done it. And I was going to say that if you go to therapy, stick with it. Because like Jamie said, there are some things like we had some stuffed animals on the floor.
Yeah.
And they're like, pick out the animal that you, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But seriously, like there's a method to it. And I would tell anybody that
because you've got to get into that childhood space. You've got to get there somehow.
And if you get drugged to therapy, stick it out. Like, do the silly things. Like, we had to do an exercise one time where, do you remember this? Where one of us we would stand or sit in a chair or get on the floor. And I kind of remember, but I remember thinking, what
in the world?
Are we doing? But after we were done, I was like, oh, I see that. So,
give it a chance.
Give it a chance. Give it a chance.
I hear you guys saying God used that as a big part of his
word.
miracle working
for sure.
in your life.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, where are you today? Like, what's going on? Why are we ready to talk about this?
I mean, we're like better than ever.
Yeah.
And not every day is not perfect.
No.
You know, very few days are perfect.
Oh,
you
of
know,
course,
but
of course.
God, like we are in such a great place, you know, like our marriage is better than ever. I think our family is better than ever.
What about your relationship with God?
Oh, it's way better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like that's our go-to, you know, like that. We're going to pray about it first. You know, we're going to see what the Bible has to say about it first. And,
go ahead.
We never like that. I didn't even consider God 5 years ago. You know, like I would think afterwards, oh, I should have prayed about that. I should have read the Bible about that. I should have consulted my like godly influences about that. But now we actually do that on the front end.
Yeah. Well, I think when you can look backwards too, you, like Daniel said, like you saw God connecting the dots, right? But you're in the middle of the messy, the messy middle, right? Yeah. And you're praying, you're like, just fix this today. Yeah. Give me a glimpse of hope today. Right. And sometimes that doesn't come. No. So, you know, what would you guys say to folks that are they're not 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. They're not better than ever. They're like, I'm desperate. Yeah. I'm desperate. What would you tell them?
I would tell someone who is desperate that no matter what you think or you've been told or you've heard, that God is still out there. God is still redeemed. There's a verse in Joel, I think, that talks about how the Lord will replace the
years of locusts.
Yes. And that's true. He will redeem you out of any circumstance. But it's rough. It's so rough. And we used to, when we were just starting down this road of like recovery and really trying to strengthen our faith and our marriage, like I would just get mad and be like, he parted an ocean.
Right. Yes. I've been there so many times, Daniel. Like, you can fix this.
You could fix this.
Like right this minute.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, some things he does. Like some things he will touch and just be like they're new. And then sometimes you have to put, and I told Jamie, you know, when we were talking about sharing our story, like I never want to take any credit for that. Like it was all God. It was all God. But I mean, realistically, her and I both decided that we wanted to make this work, and we put the work in. And I'm not saying that was equal part. You know what I'm saying? All glory goes to God. God saved us. God redeemed us.
But you had a choice.
We did have a choice.
And
we have a choice.
Jamie could have said, no,
That's
I'm
right.
done.
Yeah.
And God would have still worked in your lives in different
Agreed.
ways.
Absolutely.
And whatever that may have looked like, whether you divorced or stayed together, God was still going to work in you.
Yeah.
But both of you said yes.
Yeah.
And so here you are.
Right.
And that to me is beautiful, and that's so hopeful. And so if those that are listening hear that.
Yeah.
That both of you can say yes to this.
Yeah.
There was I remember one morning after he had come back home, and I can't remember how far into it we were, but I was sitting in the bed praying or reading my Bible, doing something, and I've never heard God's voice before or even felt like God spoke to me, but in my head, I was like, God is telling me to be patient with him because patience is not my gift. I want to do the work. I want to do the things you're telling me to do, and then it's going to be good, and we're going to move on, and it's going to be fine. Everything's fine.
Like, this is the formula.
Yeah.
If I do this, then this will be the result.
Right. And that's not how he rolls. You know, he's a little bit more like methodical, and I've learned over the course of this that, you know, like if I want to change plans, I need to give him a heads up, or if I want to.
I could have taught you that.
Yeah. You need like a 2-week notice heads up.
Right.
Yes.
Or like I can't.
Yeah.
Like I just need to
Draw
give
out
him
the
a minute.
room, let him know how everything's going to be.
Yeah. Like he'll come around eventually. I just need to give him a minute to think through it. Whereas I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. Let's do it now. Let's go now. And God just told me, be patient. And I came back to that so many times over the course of the last 2 years that God told me just to be patient with him and to like, I'm not in control of this. I'm not in control of Daniel. I'm not even in control of how fast this healing happens.
That's right.
God is completely in control of that. And Daniel has to move at his own pace through this. I can't change him. I can't fix him. I can't do any of that, you know? So yeah, that's been very important for me throughout all of this, is just hearing from God and doing what he says, you know, and that's a good rule for life in general, but for this for sure that's been important to me.
Yeah, you're right.
And staying faithful.
Yeah.
And the time frame that, you know, that you're talking about, Steve and I have went through just some really hard times in our marriage too. And that healing, like you said, doesn't come instantly. And I remember thinking in our marriage, am I going to hurt forever? Is it going, like, am I going to feel like I'm dying forever? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long. And so it literally, it's just being in this place of, this hurts now. This hurts, but we're going to get there. God is going to get us through. And he did. And he's doing that for y'all. And now you're here sharing your story of hope.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, I think the point that you made, Hannah, that's so good is, and we, you know, we had another guest on talking about hope after something tragic. And I remember her talking about, you know, that the scripture tells us that all things work together for good.
That's right.
And if it's not good, then the story's not over.
Yep.
Yes.
And we don't know how it's going to end. We may not see how it's going to end. I'm so on target with you with the whole, like, God, just like, why do you redeem some marriages? Why do you not redeem others? Like, why in some marriages do both partners agree and one doesn't in others? And, you know, why do you heal some people of sickness? And those questions, I think those are real questions. And I've been really encouraged just reading through Psalms recently because, you know, here's David, a man after God's own heart. And half the time he's saying the things I want to say, like, hello, are you there? Like, do you not see this? Like, I'm the good guy. Like, why is this going on? And so I think getting in the Word of God and recognizing that those were real people who went through real life things, felt real emotions just like us. And so just recognizing the whole totality of who God is, that he is good, even when we don't sometimes see what's going on.
Right. Agree.
So,
Yeah. Okay. So hope. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And the kids now, how are they?
They're good.
Yeah.
Our kids are good. You know, Lainey, when Daniel's affair was going on, he knew about it. And that was something very hard to realize. We told him that Daniel was going to be leaving and why, and he told us that he had known about it. And so immediately I'm driving him to a counselor as fast as I can, because of course he's got to be all screwed up, you know, but the counselor told us that he's fine. You know, she's like, I don't really think that he needs to see me. And I think that him seeing us like work hard through this and going to God for healing, and, you know, that I think that that's just been so great for him. You know, I think divorce is hard for kids, and you know, my older two kids have been through that. And I think our middle kiddo, Blake, he struggles with having divorced parents. So I think that him seeing us go through this has helped him to see that, like, it doesn't have to be that way, but this also isn't what I want for my future. You know, like, I want to do all that I can do to avoid having this. And it's opened up the door for a lot of conversations. And then I think for Peyton, She's learned some grace and some patience that I wish I would have learned when I was 22 years old. Because she's had to sit back and kind of watch it unfold and show some forgiveness that she doesn't lean towards naturally. You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really important, T, because you were talking about, when you come at things from a worldly perspective, there is that. Don't let anybody walk all over you like that. Like, that's not how this is supposed to go. And, someone's wronged you, you don't forgive them. And that's what society tells you, right? It's like, you're enabling.
Until you're on the other end of that, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you're the one needing grace and forgiveness and mercy.
Exactly. And then when you look at it from a God perspective, it's like, no, you do show up with grace and mercy and forgiveness. And it doesn't mean you're a doormat, but at the same time, we come at it from a different lens.
But when you think of Jesus and his ultimate sacrifice, I mean, I've been called a doormat before, right? But I'm like, man, Jesus gave up his life.
Yeah.
He gave up his life. And so what does that require of me? And just trying to navigate those waters and our relationships and marriage. And I will say the hard times that Stephen and I went through, I would do it again. I would absolutely do it again because it was a game changer. So
in the end,
absolutely. So, man, thank you all for sharing. I know we're our time. We need to wrap up.
About out of time.
My goodness.
We could talk all day long though.
Just the hope. But I want to say this, knowing you guys for many years now, Jamie, you and I worked together, and just watching you guys, and it's beautiful. What you have is a beautiful story, and God does get the glory. And so your kids are getting to see that. Your friends are getting to see that. We're getting to see that.
I'm honored that you trusted this space to share it too. Thank you for coming to us and saying, I want to do this, because that's why we do what we do, because we do want to give opportunity and space for people to encourage people that are going to go through this, don't even know. They may not even know that this is going to be your story one of these days, and you need to hear this. So, yeah.
Well, and I just, I can't encourage people enough to reach out. If you are going through this, you've got, you don't have to do it by yourself. We would not be here today if we tried to do this by ourselves.
No.
Right.
You have to have that tribe of people. You have to have that safe space. You have to have somebody that you can go to and say, this sucks,
Yeah.
But that's also going to pray for you. That was my first, when I found out about Daniel's affair, my first thought was, who can I go to that's going to give me godly advice? I knew that I needed to go to somebody who wasn't going to say, well, girl, you better leave him.
Right.
Somebody that was going to point me in the right direction. And we want to be that for whoever needs that,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think you guys kept showing up at church. That's what I hear you saying too,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I think that's another tactic that the enemy likes to use, is just hang your head in shame. Don't go. People
Don't
are judging
talk
you.
about
They're
it.
talking about you behind the back. They, all the things. And it's hard. It's hard to sit there, especially in the beginning, right?
yeah.
When you're like, all our stuff is out there.
Right.
Yeah. But keep showing up.
We used to go to our small group, and I would be frustrated, and I would say, "Am I the project? Are they going to fix me? And and that was my own pride. Shame and pride. And I would say too, like you said, if you're in it, reach out and tell somebody. But on the flip side of that, if someone reaches out to you, do not discount the power of prayer. I know in our circle of, man, I'll pray for you. But do it. And it works. And not just once. I mean, I can't tell y'all how much I could feel people praying for me when I did not live at the house. It was, like I said, it was like someone was on my back. It was a gigantic weight, and I could feel people praying for me. I knew they were praying for me. And so if you're in it, reach out. And if somebody reaches out, do not discount the power of prayer, because it makes a difference.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you guys.
All.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
No matter what situation you may be facing today, we pray that their story was encouraging to you as it was to us. You may need to share your story with someone. I hope you didn't miss how many times Jamie and Daniel talked about the importance of opening up to friends that they could trust, that would give them godly advice and counsel and would pray for them. And we all need those people in our lives. And the enemy definitely does not want us sharing our story with one another, because as long as he can keep it in the dark and not bring it to the light of Jesus, then he can keep us in traps of shame and embarrassment and discouragement and doubt and disbelief and all the things. So whatever it is that you're going through today, maybe share it with someone. Pray about who that might be. As always, we are so grateful that you were here with us today for another episode of the What's Your Story podcast, and we look forward to being with you again next week. We'll see you then.